Welcome back to another special episode of the Epic Experiment Podcast. I'm your host, Bruce, and tonight I am doing it solo. Lux has had some family stuff come up. He's got to take care of his parents. So it's just me tonight, everybody. Hope you've had happy holidays and are getting ready for the start of 2021. We're here at the podcast. I've had a good holiday season. I know here at home, my family's been doing well. We've had a good Christmas. We've had some nice meals. We've seen my wife's grandmother who lives across town here and by herself. So we've been respecting social distancing and all that stuff to try and deal with the COVID. Anyway, but we've had a good holiday season and are looking forward to 2021. But I am by myself tonight, so it's just going to be me entertaining you tonight for all of you who are out there listening to us in the great wide world. So thanks very much for joining me, and let's get on with the show. A couple of things before we get on with the actual content today. Don't forget that you can find all of our stuff over at thelotuscouncil.com. You can find the podcast, you can find videos, you can find product opening, you can find their Twitch stream, all sorts of great things. Probably the best thing about the whole thing is their Discord, where you can talk to lots of people who love Magic the Gathering, in particular people who love EDH. So come on into the lotuscouncil.com, come and join the Discord. It is free for everybody, and come and hang out with me and loads of other great people over on the Discord, and come and talk some Magic. Once again, a big thank you to the folks organizing the third annual 31 Days of Christmas. We participated. Our video went live today. Today is December the 28th, and it went live around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. We'd like to really thank them for the opportunity to be part of this activity this year. We had a ton of fun. Lux and I really enjoyed making the deck for everybody that we gave away. We really enjoyed making the video. We don't normally make videos, so for us to do one was kind of fun. So thank you so much to them for giving us the opportunity to be involved. And please stay tuned for it next year. Hopefully they can put it together once again and make it a fourth annual thing and not just 3 years. But anyway, great opportunity for content creators to be part of something pretty fun. And hopefully we get back to the Magic community during the holiday season. So thank you very much once again. But it is time to go on with the show. So segment 1, we have Garbage or Great. Tonight's card is Herald of Anguish. So Herald of Anguish is 5 black for a demon that is a 5/5 with flying. But it also has at the beginning of your end step, each opponent discards a card. And then for 1 and a black, sacrifice an artifact, target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. This card would be interesting if it stopped there. However, what is truly interesting is the improvise ability. This is improvise is your artifacts can help cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1 generic mana. So if you have any sort of artifact heavy deck, or not even that heavy, I suppose. We have any number of artifacts. You can help cut down the casting cost of this 7-mana demon. Now, this particular card is not particularly well played through EDH Rec. So EDH Rec is telling me that, let's pull it up here. Pardon me there, folks. It appears in 1,300 decks, which is hardly outrageous, and is probably why it costs roughly 90 cents to pick it up. All right? Do I think this card is probably better than it looks? Yeah, I think this looks like a pretty decent card. You do need to find the right sort of shell for it, because the real feature with this card is that you can make your opponents discard their cards. And decks that look to target other people's hands are very challenging to deal with, and people don't like them much. So something like, maybe a tiny bones. I'm looking at the top commanders, and they're telling me it's like Thrasios, Chainer, Hogak, Yidris, Galissa the Traitor, King Makar. I'm also thinking Tiny Bones kind of goes with it maybe a little bit. Yeah, their Tiny Bones is. There's lots of black commanders that can be take advantage of this, and black will play a fair number of artifacts to go along with it. So you could cast this for, 5 mana, 4 mana maybe if you're particularly fortunate. You can tap equipment, you can tap vehicles, you can tap treasures or clue tokens, whatever you manage to get your hands on. So I think the card has some interesting upside. And if I were to tell you this was a 5 mana 5/5, you might be more inclined to look at it. But I appreciate that 7 mana. It seems a little bit dicey to cast this, and you can find more impactful cards. So on the whole, is this card garbage or is it great? I'm going to have to come down on the side that's probably garbage. Much as I like it, it's probably garbage because it doesn't really do enough. You're investing a lot of mana. Even if you get it for 5 mana, that's still a lot of mana. And you're not getting a whole lot of effect where you can get much more potent demons than this sort of effect. Like discarding a card, okay, but how long is this going to last in order for you to get 2 cards out of everybody or 3 cards? It's going to take quite a bit of work, and your opponents are going to get rid of this fast. So it makes it, maybe a bit of a lightning rod for some removal. But more than anything, I just think people just you're not going to be too keen to try and cast a 7 mana spell that doesn't really do a whole lot. It doesn't make them sacrifice their creatures, doesn't blow up their lands, doesn't make you tutor. There's lots of things, and there's lots of better demons at this mana cost that you can grab that are going to make this sort of creature be more appealing. So I kind of think it's garbage. As much as I'd like to play it, and I have it in a deck of mine somewhere kicking around, but I don't think it's really quite where you want to be at with your 7 mana spell at the top of your curve. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Herald of Anguish. Moving on to segment 2, we have some previews that were left over from Call Time. Now, we don't get a lot of previews during the holiday season per se because Wizards of the Coast takes a bit of a break, and I'm pretty sure I heard that spoilers are going to be getting the week of, or starting January 7th, I believe. So Thursday, sort of a week from now, which is, surprisingly soon, but, we're not there yet. So they've been kind of on the lay low and not a lot going on. So we've had lots of these cards. People probably have seen them and had a chance to talk about them. So I thought we would talk about these as well. So the first is a bit of a cycle that rounds out the pathway cycle that we started in Zendikar Rising. So we have Bark Channel Pathway, Tide Channel Pathway, Blightstep Pathway, Searstep Pathway, Darkboar Pathway, Slitherboar Pathway, and Hengegate Pathway and Mistgate Pathway. So as you gather, these are all modal double-face cards, or MDFCs, and they complete the cycle of rare lands that we started in Zendikar Rising. And I'm glad they are being printed because it now gives all 10 color pairs a viable rare dual land that they can play in Standard, where your mana often needs this sort of rare cycle. Now, for us in Commander, I think these cards are actually pretty decent, particularly when you look at them from the context of because these sets, particularly with Zendikar Rising, so many of the cards from Zendikar Rising have seen their price just plummet because everybody who's a speculator or into the MTG finance game are looking to grab versions out of the collector boosters. And that's where essentially the value has been concentrated from this set. Meaning there's a lot of cards that, unless you're the very top cards being played in the format, a lot of other cards have sort of fallen by the wayside and seen their prices drop out of the regular booster box. So all the MDSCs from Zendikar Rising are pretty affordable on the whole. This is a bit of a price comparison. Let's go check. We'll check Goldfish because that seems to be one of the sites that people are pretty okay with. So our rare lands. So the pathways. So Branchloft is $5. if it's getting the pre-release promo, but the regular version is $276. Bright Climb is $3. Crag Crown is $291. So they're all hovering around the $2.50, $3 mark, which means they're reasonably affordable dual lands for Commander players if you're playing on a budget. And since we're big here about playing on a budget, and we'd love to have untapped lands if we can get them, these are pretty reasonable cards for us to be targeting and grabbing for our decks. So I'm a big fan of seeing these get completed for Commander, particularly budget Commander, as I think they're going to see a lot of play of people who are budget conscious, particularly just the regular old pack version. These are going to get a lot of play. I'm somebody who's very excited for these cards to see print, and looking forward for these ones as well, because I'm sure the same thing's going to happen with Call Time. The collector boosters are going to be where people go to find expensive cards. If you're just looking for versions to put in your deck to round out your 100 cards, you're going to go find the regular non-foil version, and there you go. So these will probably be something in the neighborhood of $3 to $5, meaning you can grab a couple of them and away you go. So big fan. Glad these are back. So I think that's pretty cool. Pyre of Heroes. So 2-mana artifact, and it says 2 and tap, sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature and has converted mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So we're getting basically Birthing Pod, but it's going to be Birthing Pod for a particular creature type. So tribal decks are going to be fine with this. Tribal decks are going to enjoy this, and it's going to be pretty strong in that sense. And if you can find some very degenerate combos with your particular tribe, whether it's zombies or elves or humans or whatever, I kind of think humans is where people are going to start with this one, because humans come in all 5 colors, and you can have a 5-color humans deck and play Pyre of Heroes and go and find some very powerful things. But there's lots of other tribes that are pretty well supported that would allow you to do this. I'm curious to see what it does. Birthing Pod was very, very powerful, and so I'm kind of the opinion that it's probably going to be powerful again, but it's going to be a little more niche, and I think that Wizards is okay with that. And I think I am too. I think Wizards is okay with it because it's not going to break formats in half the way Pod did. Birthing Pod just, resulted in value decks where you just chain into one into the next and the other. Also, the fact that this doesn't have the Phyrexian mana in it means you legitimately have to spend mana on this is going to be good for people. Now, let's just have a quick comparison. Birthing Pod. So Birthing Pod, yeah. So you can, the fact you can activate Birthing Pod for 1 mana and 2 life, which really means you're only spending the single mana for it, is a big difference. You have to spend 2 to use it on Pyre of Heroes. So, I mean, it's not a huge difference, realistically in many decks, but on the decks that are going to care, like that extra slight increase in cost because now you got to spend 2 legit mana on it, is going to be a bit of a challenge. So otherwise it's templated exactly like Birthing Pod in every way apart from its creature types. There's been some combos already proposed. I've seen Arcane Adaptation, which is a card that gives all your creatures in your deck the same creature type. You could name it, and you can name slivers or humans or whatever you like, and there you go. You got them all. Every creature in your deck is that particular creature type, making it a very powerful combo piece or enabler for Pyre of Heroes. Next we have Showdown of the Skulls, which is 2 white-red. Exile the top 4 cards of your library until the next... It's a saga, sorry. My mistake. So Chapter 1, exile the top 4 cards of your library until your next turn. You may play those cards. So you get like impulse draw up to 4 cards, which is a significant thing, and you can play them, meaning you can hit a land off the top, which is good. And whenever you cast a spell this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So chapters 2 and 3 are kind of wanting you to cast a bunch of spells, pump your things up, and they're putting counters on stuff. So 2 white red for this effect is okay. I like the first chapter. That first chapter is exciting. It gives Boros Boros decks a measure of card advantage that they can then leverage into moving forward and generating some velocity with their deck. The second part, putting +1/+1 counters on it, sure, I suppose it doesn't feel like particularly impactful. I think that there'd be a lot more things that Boros would want to do, but you never know. Maybe that's all you need to put on your Aurelia or your big angel that's flying over top and sort of go to work. So I'm reasonably inclined. I always like the sagas, and I think this one could be fun. I don't think it's going to be particularly impactful. I have a saga deck that's looking for this card. I'll be excited when I can get one of these. I expect they'll be reasonably affordable too. So anyway, there we have that. And then we have one that drew a lot of talk, was Toski, Bearer of Secrets, which is a 3 and a green for legendary creature Squirrel. It's a 1/1, and it says this spell can't be countered, is indestructible. Toski, Bearer of Squirrels attacks each combat if able, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So, okay, can't be countered, sure, fine, that's a nice ability. Indestructible, okay. If you're not going to give me a big body, at least you give me something I can do that's hard to deal with. And the fact that it attacks each turn, sure, why not? That seems fine. It's kind of fun. But this last line, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That's big game. That is big game. Because I am sure that green decks all over the place who want to draw cards are going to be excited that they can now draw even more cards with their big trampling monsters just stampeding over and dealing damage to your opponents. So even something as derpy as a Colossal Dreadmaw could probably draw you a card or two and going to make you a happy person. So Toski's fine. I mean, I think he's a fun card. I like the fact that they're giving us a legendary squirrel, so that squirrels can now have their own mono green legendary commander to pilot them. But in terms of the card itself, I think it's very powerful in the sense that you're going to draw a lot of cards off this thing. I think it is not very hard to conceive of a situation where green decks play this, attack for a bunch, draw a bunch of cards, refill their grip, and then they're off to the races, leaving the rest of us far behind. So green got another cool trick, cool toy to go in their deck. So yeah, I think the one thing that green may struggle with, green may struggle with is the fact that there are going to be too many options at 4, 5, and 6 mana that you're going to want to play. And will you make room for Toski? Some decks will, some decks won't. There's just a lot of options now, and it may result in some things getting overlooked or not played in favor of others, and that's just sort of how the way it's going to go. So, there we have Toski, Bearer of Secrets. Cool card. A lot of people didn't like this ability that green got here to draw cards, and thought it should have been in another color. I'm pretty okay with green getting it, although I'm not sure green really needed it. But again, I'm not the one designing cards. There's probably a reason for it. Also, I'm fairly certain that they're really eyeing up squirrel decks and enticing people who may want to play squirrels, because I think they know things that are furry and cute make for very popular targets for people to build and play for their more, let's say, relaxed, casual, thematic decks out there, instead of people who are looking to play to win. So that's all the Call Time preview cards we had for the year, or for Call Time up until this point. We're going to get some more, obviously, starting in the new year with when we get back to business. But I thought we'd get down to some reviewing what we saw in 2020 moving forward. So what I did, I sort of went through month by month, going through, what cards, what sets we might have seen, what cards may have been banned, and then any other, whatever else we needed to talk about each of those months. So I guess we'll get down to business. We're sort of reviewing 2020 and where we were. We're not going to talk about where the cast was because our 1 year anniversary is coming up come the end of January, early February. So we'll go through the year for the Epic Experiment podcast then. But I thought now might be a good time to review what happened in Magic more generally. So, starting in January, we had Theros Beyond Death released as the winter set, which brought us Uro and Kroxa as the two biggest things. But there are lots of other great cards in the set. But let's be real, the headlining piece for this set is Kroxa and Uro. But also to go along with it, a very large amount of graveyard synergy to go with this, to the point where people now, as if you weren't already being very conscious of people's graveyards, you need to be extra conscious of them with Theros Beyond Death going forward, because there's a lot of cards that take absolute degenerate advantage of their graveyard to either escape creatures or to power up other aspects. Theros Beyond Death is very graveyard synergy heavy, and as a result, people in Commander, we need to take note of that. They really push the graveyard mechanic, and putting things in your opponent's graveyard isn't necessarily a good thing. Not that it ever was, but there was a time when you could put things in their graveyard and you think, I've solved that problem for now. And you probably haven't. The problem's going to come back because it's not gone, which made the exiling of people's graveyards all that much more important. And so things like Soul Guide Lantern, probably more important than ever before. If you haven't got some, go and find some, grab them up before the set fully rotates next fall. You will not be sorry because they're going to get played lots. All right. January also brought with us the banning of Oko, Mox Opal, Mycosynth Lattice, all in Modern. For obvious reasons, Oko was nuts. It's straight up nuts. The fact that it made it to January, where it got banned, it already was banned in a number of places in the fall, shortly after it was released, and it made it as far as January before it got banned in Modern. Mox Opal had been on the chopping block for a while, because it enabled all sorts of affinity-related decks and other things for some fast mana, and Mycosynth Lattice was a unpleasant piece to go along with Karn, the great creator, and so it was essentially a lock that if you could lock your opponent out of the game, make them unable to play, and then you could then win freely. We also had the Year of the Rat Secret Lair drop come down in January, which no idea if it sold well or not, but it was interesting, and I'm taking note of that because now that's January. We had 2 products get released in January. There's going to be a recurring trend here about the number of products that get released each month. February brought us the Theros Stargazing Secret Lair drop. There was 5 of them altogether, as all 15 original gods were released in sets of 3, I believe. Anyway, that's 5 more, so we're at 7 by the time we reach in February. Otherwise, the formats were fine. We were learning just how powerful things like Uro could be, particularly in the context of still having access to things like Wilderness Reclamation and Hydroid Crisis and blah, 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 blah. Next, we end up in March. So they banned a whole bunch of new cards in March. They banned in Brawl, they banned Golos Tireless Pilgrim. In Legacy, they banned Underworld Breach. In Historic, they banned Oko, Thief of Crowns, Once Upon a Time, Veil of Summer. But Field of the Dead is made legal once again. And in Modern, Once Upon a Time is banned there too. So most of these cards make sense to see a banning. Golos Tireless Pilgrim is a very powerful commander, and it just enables all sorts of 5-color shenanigans. I saw it playing firsthand in our boxing league. Somebody had opened a Golos Tireless Pilgrim. It was probably the top deck of the table each and every week. So that's definitely a concern. Legacy, Underworld Breach, again, very powerful card that's, similar to Yawgmoth's Will, I believe, which is like reserve list and super busted, and Underworld Breach is pretty much the same thing. Historic, the fact that Oko made it this far, Once Upon a Time, Veil of Summer, you gotta be kidding me. Oko is now, by this point, Oko is just about banned in every format it can be played in, except for Commanders. So, I think Vintage and Commander are the only two places Oko can still be played. But let's have a quick look. Where is it legal? It's legal in Legacy, Vintage, and Commander. That's it. Oops. But Field of the Dead gets brought back off the list, and meaning people are going to play Field of the Dead again. And Modern Once Upon a Time. Yeah, that card's good. Now, what we did start seeing in March was the cancellation of events as a result of what we now have come to know as COVID. And so they started canceling GPs in Italy and in France and other places. And now, obviously, here we are in December, almost January 2021, and the world is still very much in that situation. GPs are canceled, large gatherings of people aren't a thing, I know personally March 13th sticks out very prominently to me. As I'm a teacher in Ontario, and that was the Friday before March break, and that was the last Friday that our students were at school in person until this past September, and so we were locked down quite heavily. And interesting enough, we're going back into a lockdown situation where our students will be learning from home starting in January, at least for a little while. So we're still very much in the thick of it. Even as the vaccines are starting to roll out. We have the Thalia Secret Lair Drop, and we have International Women's Day Secret Lair Drop. So we have two more. That brings us to 9 total products for the year, and we're only at March. In April, we've had some more bannings. In Commander, we had Lutri the Spell Chaser and Flash get banned, which is interesting. Lutri, because it didn't even get revealed, or it was revealed that very day, and then it was immediately we were notified it was banned, which for interesting reasons. I think they were the argument that essentially the condition to play Lutri as a companion was so low that everybody could do it. If you were a red-blue deck, there was no reason not to, is very valid. So Lutri got banned from the outset. The rules committee got rid of it, and that's really interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. I wonder if I'll see it happen again. Flash got banned, which made people in the competitive EDH crowd very happy, because it sort of nerfed the Protean Hulk Flash combo that was out there. In Brawl, Lutri got banned for essentially the same reasons. And it didn't even Lutri didn't even make it into into Brawl to play competitive Brawl on digital. It was done. Just done. Also, it was be noted here that Ikoria was supposed to drop in April, but it didn't. At least not in North America. If you were in Asia, you were able to get it and pick up some of the fun alternate art cards or whatever. But it wasn't until in May that we got Ikoria in paper in North America. All right. Moving on to May. In Brawl, we have Drannith Magistrate and Winota Joiner Forces get banned. Drannith Magistrate, because it's kind of an unfun mechanic where it won't let you cast things that aren't in your hand, namely your commander. It's not nearly as egregious in regular Commander, so it's not banned there, and I think that's probably the right choice. However, the fact in Brawl, in a smaller card pool, if you were playing white, you would be playing Drannith Magistrate all day, every day. Winota is, again, another very reasonable reason to ban it, because of, you attack with non-humans, you trigger Winota, and you go find more humans, and they come into play tapped and attacking and indestructible. Yeah, all this seems really good. The amount of value generated is very powerful. As translated to Commander, I've seen a very powerful Winota Joiner Forces deck with good cause, and I'm glad to see that Boros has a deck that is so powerful and that can do a lot of good. In Legacy, Lurrus the Dream Den and Zerda the Dawnwaker are banned. Lurrus surprises nobody. Zerda is not totally surprising because of the fact you can, like, it's pretty easy to break the clause on Zerda that allows you to make infinite mana, and infinite mana often results in the game being over. In Vintage, Lurrus the Dream Den is banned, and they said it is the first power level ban in Vintage since 1996. So the fact that power level on Lurrus is so high. So these companions that Ikoria introduced are super crazy powerful. And then Commander had... so there's some minor affairs there with Commander. I'm taking the notes that I wrote, and I'm like, okay, is things being non-legal cards. But anyway, Lurrus is allowed to stay in Commander, which is fine. There was also a Godzilla Land Secret Lair drop, which now brings us to Ikoria and a Godzilla plus the other 9. We're at 11 sets already, or 11 releases already. June. So we have bannings. Agent of Treachery and Fires of Invention got banned. In Historic, Agent of Treacheries and Fire of Invention got suspended. And Winota Joiner of Forces is banned in Historic. So, and then there were a whole bunch of cards that were deemed to be racially offensive as a result of the protests surrounding Black Lives Matters. This made quite a bit of waves as people were they removed from the Gatherer database for imagery that was deemed to be offensive or racist. Whether you think you liked it or not is not really the question. It happened, so there it is. I think personally, I'm kind of glad that they got removed. I don't think the imagery is something that we need to see in the game, so they can be taken out of the game for all of us, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. We had the Summer Super Lair Super Drop, which was another 5, so we're at 16. Okay, we're at 16 sets by halfway through the year. In July, bannings included Historic. We have Agent of Treachery, Fires of Inventions, and Winota Forces are all officially banned. They are done. They're not suspended. They are done. Nexus of Fate, which was banned in Best of 1, is also banned now in Best of 3. I was under the impression Nexus of Fate would have already been done at this point, but what do I know? And Burning Tree Emissary is suspended. In Modern, Arkham's Astrolabe is banned. In Pauper, Expedition Map and Mystic Sanctuary are banned. And in Pioneer, Oath of Nissa is unbanned, which is an interesting development there too. Core 21 drops, which is on July 3rd, and Jumpstart is also released a few weeks later. Right, so now we're talking, what are we at? We're at 18 products? Yeah, 18 products. Just a few. In August, we had... we even forgot the Commander release that came in with Ikoria. Look at that. In August, Standard, the following cards were banned. Cauldron Familiar, Growth Spiral, Teferi Time Raveler, Wilderness Reclamation are all banned, despite the fact that 3 of those 4 cards are going to be rotating out of Standard in 6 weeks. So, they banned them, fine, but they're going to go away anyway, so did we need to ban them? I don't know, but they did. In Brawl, Teferi Time Raveler is banned, and Ruined Halo is banned. Sure, I guess. The idea of playing Teferi Time Raveler as your commander is kind of nauseating in its own right, but yeah, no, they got banned. Fine. Historic, with Teferi Time Raveler, Wilderness Reclamation are suspended. Ruined Halo and Gideon's Intervention are banned in Historic Brawl. Okay. Week 4, Field of the Dead is banned once again. So they unbanned it. They tried it for 2 months. Discovered Field of the Dead was still no good and not suitable, and they banned it. And then Pioneer, Inverter of Truth, Kethis the Hidden Hand, Underworld Breach, and Walking Ballista are all banned, nerfing a whole bunch of combo decks in in the format, which kind of unfortunate if you're a combo player, but there we go. And let's not forget double masters drops, and then we had 2 more secret lair drops. There was a dog one that I forgot the name exactly, but they're all dogs and for dog lovers. And then they had prime slime secret lair drop. So now we're at 21 products for the year. All right. In September, in standard, Uro Titan Nature's Wrath is banned. All right. So right. We have Zendikar Rising is released in the September, along with a secret lair drop and Yargle, and some more commander decks to go along with Zendikar Rising. There was the Anawan deck, and then there was the, believe it was Oben, which is the Naya colored landfall deck. Anyway, some more products, and then you have a Zendikar secret lair and a Yargle secret lair product. So between those, you're at 24. 25 products. You have lots of things to purchase if you want to spend your money on things. Now we get to October. Omnath, Locus of Creation, Lucky Clover, and Escape to the Wilds are all banned. So yet more Throne of Eldraine cards are banned, and the headliner from Zendikar Rising. In Historic, Omnath, Locus of Creation is suspended. Teferi, Time Raveler, and Wilderness Reclamation are banned outright, and Burning Tree Emissary is unbanned, which is an interesting development. I don't know how impactful it is. I don't play a lot of Historic. Maybe it gives Gruul decks back their a valuable devotion piece. I don't know. And then in Brawl, Omnath, Locus of Creation is banned because the dude is crazy. Omnath was a very, very good card. I'm still not convinced. I'm not sold on it, but obviously people were excited for him, and he was deemed to be very good. And then the big controversy for the month was the Walking Dead secret lair drop, where we had mechanically unique cards from a different IP or intellectual property that got released and could only be acquired through buying this secret lair drop, which a lot of people in the Magic community did not like, me included. I'm not a big fan of them, still not. I didn't spend my money on that product, nor will I. So, anyway, that is that. In November, we had Commander Legends drop. We had, which is, our 29th product. 26th product. Extra Life, Secret Lair drop. Came down, it's number 27. And then we have our Secret Lair Anniversary drop, which has got 7 more in December, which brings us to a grand total of like 34 or 35 products this year, which is an awful lot of product. And I think there's 2 things that I take from 2020 when we sum it all up, everybody. So the number one is the number of bannings is kind of astonishing. Now some of it is because we've had more formats that are needing to be curated than ever before. You have Historic, you have Brawl, which are formats that up until recently did not exist and really only exist because of the advent of Arena. However, they exist, they get played, people spend time jamming cards, and so Wizard has to make sure that their formats are also respectable. So that's interesting. But just, I think that it speaks to the relative power level of the recent sets being very, very high, particularly Throne of Eldraine, but to other sets including Throne of Eldraine, Theros Beyond Death and Ikoria with the companions are all indicative of having very powerful cards, very powerful development strategies, and making for a very pushed and very powerful standard environment, and consequently, the increase in power to Commander, I think, is going along hand in hand with that. So, what would have been good 3 years ago, I don't think checks out so much anymore. All right, we're moving on to segment. Oh, I missed the other half of that discussion. So, yes, the power level has obviously jumped a fair margin. The other one is that Wizards is clearly pushing for us to buy more product. That is fairly clear. Anybody with half a noodle can figure out that this is what's being desired by Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, that they need to sell more product to us. and they're giving us more premium product, more unique product that try and catch and speak to more of us to try and allow us to create the decks that personally appeal to us more, which I think is a fine marketing ploy. I still think we're grappling with the thought here in our community that every product needs to be purchased. All right, there was a time when there were, only a few ancillary products and your 4 main sets for the year. Your block plus a core set. So making the number of products you had to purchase much smaller, meaning people could save their money up and buy things. Now you're getting a product released almost every month, if not, it's every 6 weeks. Meaning it's very difficult to stay on top of whatever product you're buying and to get a little bit of everything. And so people need to prioritize. Am I getting everything, or am I only getting what I want or need? And, I'm personally in the position where I only get what I want at this point. I can't go and buy every secret lair, and I don't. I can't buy every product, and I don't. So I think Wizards knows that many players still are prone to trying to think that they can buy everything. I would encourage people out there who are buying cards, particularly if you're on any sort of a budget whatsoever, that you maybe reconsider that position and just let things go. Let things go. You don't need to buy everything. If you are financially motivated by the MTG finance angle of things, I have heard wise advice saying there's always a better opportunity around the corner. Nothing says you need to buy this thing right now, even if it is potentially very remunerative. You don't need to. There's going to be something else just as good or just as appealing around the corner. You just got to wait 6 weeks. You do not need to go for it now. And so that piece of advice really resonates with me. So I don't. There's a lot of things I don't purchase. I was excited for Zendikar Rising, but I only got a booster box. I didn't buy any collector's booster stuff. I'm looking to play the game. I'm not looking to play the finance angle, so to speak. So, which is interesting because it means, what we're seeing is that if you're just interested in playing the game and you're interested in using many of the more recent cards, and not in their most premium printing, but in fairly mundane printings, the regular pack non-foils, you can play the game now probably cheaper than ever before. Yeah, if you want to play with the expensive high-end stuff, you want to play with the extended borderless, textless, whatever, all the goodies, bells and whistles that they're printing, the etched foils, the borderless etched foils. Maybe next time it's going to come with the keys to a car. I don't know. Then you're going to spend a lot more. But if you're looking just to play cards with your friends, over a webcam or around a kitchen table or whatever that is allowed again, you don't need to spend a lot of money anymore. And I think we will demonstrate that once again this week for sure with the deck that Lux brewed up before he wasn't able to come on the show this week. So, I guess bottom line is just you don't need to spend a fortune to get in the game. You can spend a modest amount of money, enjoy the game with your friends, and then decide if you want to ramp up or spruce up a deck and make it look cool or extra blingy, so to speak. But otherwise, you don't need to do it. You can play the game for cheaper than ever before because there's so much product out there. The demand just cannot match the number of product out there for everything. And because so much of the value has been concentrated in collected boosters, the regular non-foil versions are now, essentially the fourth tier of card for that particular. So you have your extended, foil extended art card. You have your extended art card, but non-foil. You have a pack foil. You may have a showcase art, and then you have your non-foil pack card. So you're talking like fourth or five editions of the card that are being printed, meaning that by the time they get to issue number 5, the price is cheap. Just give you an example of that if you don't believe me. Nissa Shadow Bows is mythic planeswalker from Zendikar Rising, and if you want the promotional version, the alternate art or the extended art, you're spending $8 to $12 on it, depending on where you're looking. But if you want the non-foil or the alternate art version, like the extended alternate art, but not in non-foil, you're spending about $2.20 for a planeswalker that is unmistakably one of the it's a strong card in the set. You cannot deny it. I've seen this card do some very powerful things in Brawl and on Arena in Standard. And could it be a valuable piece of a black-green landfall deck? Absolutely. So for it to be $2, it seems almost criminal. But because it's essentially the fifth printing of the card, to get a non-foil version of the card, you're talking about a card that is very favorably priced, has a powerful impact on the game if you can get it and protect it and make a landfall or two and then bring back something scary from your graveyard. It's really not that hard to play Nissa, play your Evolving Wilds, crack your Evolving Wilds, pump it up to 6 and then -5 and bring back something terrifying out of your graveyard. So, no, Nissa of Shadow Bows is really, really good, and it's only $2. So, anyway, that's what I take from 2020. It's the fact that nothing costs anything anymore. The game is more affordable than ever before, and the fact that we have had the power level just continually to skyrocket on the format. We can come back to those ideas later, particularly the power level, and as it pertains to people's expectations for playing the game in a future episode, because I do have other ideas that I want to delve into there too, but I'm going to need more than what I have here tonight. Then segment 3, we're going to be looking at Guilds of Ravnica tonight. So Guilds of Ravnica released in October of 2018, and it represents our third visit to the plane of Ravnica. And it was yet another large set. Since they had announced by this point they were not doing blocks, but they're going to be doing large sets that were standalone. Guilds of Ravnica was supposed to be a standalone set from Ravnica Allegiance. The difference is that because Ravnica Allegiance and Guilds of Ravnica are all set on the same plane and are representing different guilds in the on the plane, they feel very similar, and they feel like they should be linked in some way, but they're not really. So in Guilds of Ravnica, the 5 guilds that represented, so Izit, and their mechanic was Jumpstart. So it's kind of like a flashback-esque mechanic. So you have access to cards from your graveyard to recast as instants and sorceries. The Golgari had Undergrowth, and so Undergrowth was a mechanic that cared about your graveyard matters, particularly the number of creatures in your graveyard. Dimir had a Surveil mechanic, which was Scry, similar to Scry, but instead of cards that you didn't want scrying to the bottom of your library, you put them into your graveyard, making them perhaps an upgrade in some decks on the Scry ability. Boros had the Mentor ability, which is a +1/+1 mechanic, where when creatures attacked, they would check to make sure that if there was a creature that was smaller than them, and had lower tough or power than one of the creatures with Mentor, and then they'd start putting +1/+1 mechanic counters on stuff, making it a good limited mechanic, but I'm not convinced the mechanic goes very far in Commander, because I don't know how many attack steps you're going to get to be able to mentor anything onto anything at all. And then Selesnya had Convoke, which is a mechanic that we're all probably pretty familiar with, but it allows you to use creatures to pay mana costs for things. So again, Convoke, we know Convoke's a powerful mechanic. It's done powerful things in the past, but there it has back with Selesnya. And sort of like the high end of that was like March of the Multitudes, which is a instant speed token generator, which could be very, very powerful if allowed to do its own thing. So I sort of pulled 20 cards. I sort of figure were like cards of note from the set. So Niv Mizzet Perrin was an excellent blue-red card. Assassin's Trophy was the sort of the open-ended synergy catch-all removal spell from the Golgari. Beast Whisperer draws you cards if you're not familiar with it. Plaguecrafter is very popular in EDH, sort of as a Fleshbag Marauder sort of effect, but also can force your opponents to sacrifice Planeswalkers, or if they don't have anything at all, they can discard a card. Expansion and Explosion played very well with what would become the Temur Reclamation decks because this was their finisher. Vraska Golgari Queen is a very powerful Planeswalker. I rather like this one because her -3 ability to destroy any permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less is very powerful. Midnight Reaper has got a trigger where things die, you draw cards. Thief of Sanity, if you like to steal things off the top of your opponent's deck, Thief of Sanity is your stuff. Mission Briefing is kind of like a spell that sort of emulates what a Snapcaster Mage might do, but also has got a Surveil trigger to it, so you can, if you don't have anything in your graveyard, you can mill a couple of things with your Surveil, and then see what Mission Briefing gets you. 1,000-Year Storm does exactly what it sounds like. It's a Storm-esque card, and that could be a lot of fun, and is also surprisingly expensive now. Doom Whisperer is a 5-mana 6/6, which I think I would take every day over the Herald of Anguish that we saw earlier. Find Finality, which is again another board wipe. You can bring things back from your graveyard, or you can give everything -4/-4. Chemist's Insight draws cards and has Jumpstart, making it very powerful. And for a time, I thought it was sort of the glue that made control decks go, because they could play it once as an end of turn draw spell, and then they could flash it back essentially and draw, just outdraw most decks as a result of Chemist's Insight. Tristani's Discordant. I really like the card because it really made people who like to steal your things disappear because they can't steal your stuff now. So Tristani Discordant, I think, is really good, and I'm glad I picked up a copy and have it in a deck so that I've got some insurance if someone decides they're going to Agent of Treachery me or the like. Legion Warboss is an army in a can. I talked about him a couple of weeks ago. Experimental Frenzy is kind of crazy red draw effect. Runaway Steamkin, again, very powerful card, and then Deafening Clarion is a Boros colored limited sweeper that is very powerful. I didn't value it as highly as I probably should have when I initially opened the set, but now that having looked back on it, it's quite a good way to clear the board of smallish targets. So anyway, so this week for our deck, we're going to be looking at a black-green Izoni deck that Lux brewed up. And so Izoni says, so for 2 black-green, you got a 2/3 legendary creature, Elf Shaman. It has Undergrowth. When Izoni Thousand-Eyed enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. And then black-green, sacrifice another creature, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So basically the whole idea behind this deck is you want to dump things in your graveyard for Izoni, and then you can use her ability to sacrifice to dig deeper. So you have lots of fodder around, lots of creatures. But Lux has taken this in the way of having it be a tribal deck on top of that. You're getting you're getting a lot of elves that are going to power up some rather powerful effects. Let's look at some of the ramp package here. So your ramp package to this particular set or particular deck, things like Deathrite Shaman, which people forget is an elf, but is absolutely an elf and is very powerful. You get elves like Elvish Mystic, you get Llanowar elves, you get, believe it or not, you get Farhaven elf, you have, Fyndhorn elves, believe it or not, for the first time in a very long time. But you have lots of these cards that are going to ramp you and are mana dorks. Then moving over, you get things like Golgari Signet and Sol Ring. And you get access to these sorts of things because, again, because the cost of decks is, of cards, particularly the non-foil version, is sinking, you can now afford a few of these more expensive cards and, fix up your mana base so you're not playing signets, lockets or key runes or whatever. You're going to be playing the better targets here. You get Grow from the Ashes, which is another interesting one. I haven't seen as much as I probably thought I would. I think the card is probably underplayed. I think it is fantastic. But anyway, so Grow from the Ashes is there. As far as your removal package, is pretty easy. You get things like Ingareth's Wake, you get Victimize, you get Abrupt Decay, you get Putrefy, Silence the Believer. So you get your 5 obvious wipe effects. You get Bajuka Bog, which is a way to handle graveyards. You got some card draw. You got Skull Clamp as a way to draw some cards. You have some other abilities among cards you have. So Izoni itself, she has ways to draw you cards to keep you in the game if you need it. Anyway, going through the elves in here, you'd be surprised how many elves have been printed in the last, since 2012, that are legal and eligible to be played in this format or our slightly limited card pool. That make this, there's lots of great elves and elf lords to go along with it. So your lords are things like Dwynen Guiltleaf Dane, which is, a lord. You have Elvish Clan Caller. You have Elvish Archdruid. There was another one that I missed too further down the list. I am fairly certain. You get things like Marwyn are going to make a giant pile of mana. And then you got a lot of new ones from Commander Legends, like Nadir, Agent of Duskanel. You have Numa, Joraga Chieftain. You have a lot of ways to sort of punch, make your elves punch up a weight class and do far more than they really ever ought to. Now, because this deck cares about having things in the graveyard, you need to have some sacrifice outlets or some ways to put them in your graveyard. So, first way is something like Skull Clamp that you can play, and you can clamp your insect tokens that you make with Izoni, or you can just sack elves to it and draw cards if you need to. You can put them on Endrixar. Endrixar makes thralls that you can then also sack with Skull Clamp to draw cards very rapidly. So Skull Clamp is a pretty easy inclusion. But even if you can't get a Skull Clamp on the battlefield, if you can keep Izoni around, you can probably draw what you need to pretty quickly. The deck's pretty sweet. It's pretty tight. It's got 46 elves, which is a lot of elves. Well, not all of them are elves, because you do have things like Underrealm Lich and Sir Conrad. They're both technically not elves. Underrealm Lich, it is an elf. Look at that. It's a zombie elf shaman. Is very, very powerful. Sir Conrad just wants things in your graveyard. All right, so sweet deck. The link is going to be in the show notes. You're welcome to check it out. And has a price tag of $73. So for $73, you get this, budget-friendly elf deck to get you in the door and playing that you can then change, rearrange. But hopefully it gives you a starting point, and you can sit down and play with your friends who have maybe bought a precon or have some other modest power level decks. Obviously, you're not going to sit down and play CEDH with this stuff, but you can do quite well for yourself in more casual environments, fairly certain. All right, I've droned on long enough for you guys, so I'm going to bring this show to a wrap. If you liked what you heard tonight and you want to hear more, you can check us out on any of our platforms where you can catch podcasts. So Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, thelotuscouncil.com hosts us. We're now on Spotify. We're on Amazon. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on a bunch of different platforms. If you want to hear us, come and check us out every week. Here we are. If you want to leave us feedback and tell me that you didn't like the deck we brewed, that you wanted to hear more, whatever, you can email us at theepicexperimentpodcast@gmail.com. You can always find us on Twitter as well at @epicexpcast. That's us there. If you want to check out the deck list, you can go to Moxfield, look up the username, the Epic Experiment Podcast, and you will find all the decks that we've brewed for every week of the show that we've had at this point. So lots of good stuff there. Also, wherever you're out and about, you find us on any platform, please comment, leave a question, like, follow, subscribe, share, whatever you do. We'd love to have some extra people checking this out each week, and that only happens if you guys out there spread the word that, there we are, a couple of guys making a podcast. We're not half bad. So, let us share the word, spread the wealth. We'd love to have the word get out a little bit further, because we'd love to talk Commander with you guys each and every week. So please help spread the word. Next week we're gonna be back at it some more. We got another set. We're gonna have hopefully some more call time to talk about. We'll see. Who knows? Of course, we'll always bring you a deck. Wouldn't miss it for the world. So, another busy week coming up. But until then, this is the Epic Experiment Podcast signing off, wishing you and your friends all the best whenever you get to play Magic next. Take care, everybody. Have a happy start to 2021, and we'll see you all again next week. Thanks very much.